this one.
Looking good with them hands, guys.
There you go, in case.
Okay. And there. Put your overalls now.
Huh?
He dressed up right.
Oh, no, no.
He dressed up today.
Oh, yeah, I didn't know I was supposed to wear them. I couldn't.
Okay, guys, this microphone's hot. They may be asking a question. You just pass it around whenever someone asks, okay? Hey, Barry.
Hey, Howard.
How you doing, bud? Good to see you, man. Good to see you too, bud.
Guys, all for joining us today. On behalf of STP, very proud to bring these guys to the track with us this week. This is the 1972 STP NASCAR Cup Championship team. I'm going to introduce you guys. If you guys just want to stick up your hand so they know who we're talking about. Richard Petty, driver. Glad we all know who that is now. Dale Inman, crew chief. Richie Bars. Now, these guys all gave me what their jobs are, but also said, and I also did about 10 other things on the team, too. So we'll simplify it that Richie was a fabricator. Les Bars, truck driver and jack of all trades. Tex Powell, jackman. Barry Dodson. Barry is the one who, he told me, probably painted the 1972 championship car.
I did. Started body and paint work.
Billy Bisco, gasman. And Jimmy Zoomer Kovalchik, tire carrier. Now, thank you guys for all getting together here. It's really exciting to have you at the track for this throwback weekend. But we're going to start with Dale. Dale, seeing all these guys here today, what are your memories of some of these guys? Tell us the good stories.
You want me to pick out a good story?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh boy, there's a ton of them, but it's so good to see this crew together again. But you know, in defense of this, there's 3 or 4 that's passed away on us, you know, and sad memories for those. But this was a hard-working bunch for us, and gosh, there's just so many stories. But I don't know. We've had to work on the trucks on the side of the road. We come back from Talladega one year, and we had to put a clutch in the car after winning the race with Pete Hamilton, and of course the 500 where Richard and Pearson wrecked coming to the checkered flag. We took that car and went to Rockingham the next week and won the race. And these was the guys that had to do the work, and they were at the racetrack too. And it, of course, now I think for each one of our drivers we got about 14 cars apiece. And so that was our best car, and that's the one Richard wanted to run. So these guys put it back together for us.
Richard, what stories do you have? It's first Dale as a boss, and then how were these guys as your employees of Petty Enterprises?
Well, you got to figure back in, we had 8 or 10 people. That was motor room, that was everything. One car, on a good season, we'd have 2 cars. But they did everything. They worked on the car, they painted the car, they changed gears, they built gears, they done everything, and then they went to the racetrack and pitted the car. So it wasn't a deal where you had an engineer for this and an engineer for that. Every one of them could do anything on the car. So I guess that was what was good at it. And then I look around, look at these guys, and I said, "You mean them people put a race car together that could win a race?" You know, but they done a heck of a job. And you know, I just drove the car. They did all the work. You know, if the cars don't finish the race, then I don't win. But, you know, they had a lot of confidence in me driving the car, and I had all the confidence in the world in them doing the car, because I never worried about pieces falling off of it or having any trouble with it. I knew when we made a pit stop, our pit stops was going to be as good as anybody else's. And this was the complete crew. It wasn't a deal, like I say, that none of them really specialized in any one given thing. You know, Barry might have been painting the car, but he'd be doing something else when he wasn't painting the car or whatever. And, you know, Richie'd weld up all the pieces and stuff, and then he'd think of some new trick, and then we'd try that, and some of it worked, some of it didn't, but it just took everybody to make it work.
Guys, if you want to, there's a mic in front. You guys can pass it down the road. But talk a little bit about, you know, some of you told me you still watch NASCAR quite a bit. What do you see that the changes are that shock you the most from when you were out here on the road to what NASCAR's like today?
What I see is, like Richard and Dale both say, is now you got to have 300 people to run a race car anymore. And back in the day, it was so much simpler that we all had many qualities and many abilities to do different things. And now everybody's got to be specialized in. Like one guy puts a bolt in, one guy puts a washer on, one guy puts a nut on, one guy holds the nut on the wrench on a nut, one holds the wrench on the socket, and there's just too many people involved. And that's why a lot of mistakes are made at a racetrack, because there's too many people involved in one simple operation.
Jimmy's right. Myself, for instance, when the car come back from the racetrack, I took care of the rear end housing, and we'd help put it back in. Wade took care of the front suspension, and we'd load everything up, drive it to the racetrack, work on it all week, change engines, and get to drive it home again.
The only thing I can relate to is we've lost some other members of the team, Wade Thornburg and Ed Blanton and Duck Holder, and they were integral people to this team also. So I want to say a special thanks for them guys for not being able to be here. Other than that, Stafford Wood was a heck of a machinist, but we were all team members, and we looked after each other's backs, and we didn't call anybody out. We done what we had to do because we knew we wanted to win.
Big difference I see is there wasn't a lot of paperwork back in the day when we did it. We just did whatever Dale said do.
Hey, I'm Barry. You know, when you got the opportunity to work at Petty Enterprises, it was like a scholarship to a Harvard or a Rhodes or whatever. If you could stand up to it and keep the job, it just continued to build a lot of good credentials for you. And my father actually drove a factory Oldsmobile for the Pettys, and Ralph Earnhardt drove the other one, and Lee Petty drove one. And the Oldsmobile engineers were here, and I've never told this story to Richard and Dale, but the engineers didn't think that my dad was running close enough to the wall, because what you did, you ended up with a physical hole through the side of the car. And so they sent Richard to tell him, so they don't think you're running close enough to the wall. And he said, okay. And he said, so he went and got in the car, and he went out, and he rubbed the hole through the whole side, and he came in, and he said, how's that? And he said, I just thought I would wait till the race started before I did that. But that's a memory that means a lot to me, and my father being able to drive for the Pettys, which is a great, great honor.
Tex, you want to say anything about your years with Richard?
Yeah, this is a privilege to be here. It was a privilege to work for the Pettys. The times back then, like Richard said, we maybe built 1 or 2 new cars a year, where a team now probably has 15 and 200 or 300 people, and then we was probably 25 people. So what your responsibility and your accountability was a much bigger percentage of the success. So it was more rewarding when you won. And of course, a lot of that was thanks to Richard's driving ability, but it was a great place to work, and the whole deal is really special.
We'll open it up for any questions. We have a mic going around. Here.
Mr. Petty, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you hold the record for starts here at Darlington, but just 3 wins. What made this place so difficult? What made this place so difficult for you?
Just finishing races, it's not, I tell them all along, we always run good here. I like the racetrack. I love the challenge of the racetrack. We always run good, but, we'd be leading a race and the battery'd fall out of it, or I'd blow a tire, or run into the wall, or somebody'd run into me. Our luck here wasn't any good. I mean, you go to Martinsville, you just showed up, he's going to win the race. Come down here, we showed up just trying to finish the race. Even though we won 3 races in a row down here, things just fell together those particular year. And, before that and even after that, we just just never could put it all together. And it wasn't anybody's fault. It wasn't my fault. It wasn't the crew's fault. It was just fate just didn't let it be a good racetrack for us.
Any other questions? If you've got a question, raise your hand. They've got wireless mics in the back.
Richard, can you talk about Brad Fralick with WIFF TV out of Greenville? Can you talk about seeing the old paint scheme on Eric's car? I mean, I know you see him drive the 43 every week, but this week it looks a little different than it does on most
Yeah,
weeks.
you know, when they talk about going recto or whatever they done to get back in the deal. The 72 was the first year that any NASCAR or any Cup car had a sponsor, and that was STP. And so we argued back and forth, and finally wound up with a red and blue car, because STP was always red and ours was always blue. We argued back and forth, and you know, by the end of the year, Andy said, you know, the car's looking better and better. I said, yeah, but it's getting bluer and bluer, you know. So anyhow, but it was just the kind of deal that kind of broke the ice. Once we did that, that broke the ice for other sponsors and stuff to come in. But to go back and you look at all the other cars this year that's supposed to be whatever, old or whatever, then the 72 is the oldest car. So we went back further than anybody else. I told them if they really wanted to go back, I got a 50 Plymouth that's painted black. It's in the museum up there. That just had a 43, 42 on the side of it. That's where it all started. 75 cars the first race. We didn't go back quite that far this time.
Aaron Burns, National Speed Sport News for Richard. When you won the Southern 567, obviously that was part of your 27-win season. How big a role did that victory play for your career, you feel like, and where does that rank among your favorite wins ever?
Well, you know, everybody wants to win Darlington. Like I've said before, from 1950 to 1959, there wasn't any other super speedways. And Daytona, until Daytona come along. The race here at Darlington, the Southern 500, was our Super Bowl. And even 3 or 4 years after Daytona come about, it was still the deal. Daytona had to work a few years to overcome Darlington. And but Darlington was still the second biggest race. And all the years and stuff that it went on, it stayed that way. I think it lost a lot of its luster when we took it out of Labor Day. Everybody wanted to win, but it wasn't the top of their bucket list. I think by running the race on Labor Day, I think it brings all those records and all those memories and stuff back that it's going to put it pretty close to a lot of people's bucket list.
Any other questions? Yep, we have one right here.
Deb Williams, RaceToday.com. Dale, back in 1970 when you all came down here for the spring race and you brought the Superbirds, and Richard wrecked the Superbird during practice and he had to go to the Roadrunner, and then that's when he had the wreck coming off the old turn 4, which is turn 2 now, and barrel rolled down the front stretch. What went through your mind that day, and how did you all progress from there?
Well, we had Pete Hamilton had one of our Superbirds. Richard had a Superbird, and our short track car was a Roadrunner. And we'd run real good with the Superbird, and Richard didn't qualify as good as we thought we should have, and he went out and we wrecked the car pretty bad. So we had to go home and get the Roadrunner and make it a long story short. But it was not near as good a car as what the Superbird was. And, of course, he wrecked it and done all them silly things coming off in that corner and all out the window, which brought on the window net and all that. But we all went running to the car. Me and Richie Bars sitting over there on the end. We got in the car with him. Car's upside down on its roof, and he's knocked out. His arms all folded up there, and, I mean, we thought he was gone. And we got a hold of him best we could, unhooked the seat belt, and kind of dropped him. And he said, oh. So we know he is alive, and then it dislocated his shoulder, and we missed 6 races because he had dislocated his shoulder after that, but it didn't bring no bone out. But when it come out this time, it brought some bone. Was afraid it wouldn't stay in place. So he missed 6 races, and I know Pascal drove for us at Charlotte, and then I don't know the dates and everything, but our next race back was Michigan with him in that year. But we did miss 6 races.
Any other questions? Okay, before we go ahead, Russell.
Yeah, Kendra, I think we've got a question from back in the back. We've been very privileged today to have a very iconic media member. We've got one of the greatest writers ever to write about NASCAR and also broadcaster. Chris Economaki, the floor is yours.
Richard, Chris Economaki, Speed Sport News. Who's the greatest journalist you ever did an interview with? I think I know the answer, but I'll hang up and listen to your comments.
This is bad, guys. Oh, me.
Thank you guys all, and we will have all the guys are here available for a photo, but we'll also have a photo op at the car just after driver introductions today on pit road.
All right. Thank you, crowd. We appreciate it.
And thank STP for all this, too. It means a lot.
Thanks, guys.
You want my microphone?
I do.
Okay.
We're going to take some pictures real quick.